Well, hello. It is 11 o'clock. We're going to give it maybe a couple more minutes, see if more people want to jump on. Well, since we are already recording, we might as well kind of jump in. So if anybody wants to unmute or turn on cameras, it's right now a pretty small group. If anybody has anything they want to start, if anybody has any questions or anything they want to share, this is a great time. Otherwise, I've got a couple of things.
Hey, Scout, it's Kathy. Do you have anything related to Enable?
I thought he was jumping on. I mistakenly did not. When I was coming to work this morning, I meant to reach out to him to confirm and did not. And I haven't gotten any emails from him. And actually, yeah.
So I was wanting to talk to you anyway, and it's just going to clarify a few things for the group. So we have, so the Illinois program has been working with 3D Universe on others. We've purchased printers from them and supplies, and have had this ongoing kind of thing. And we originally shied away from the Enable chapters because we weren't in a position to be able to print something and give it away to somebody else, especially outside of Illinois. Right. But through conversations, we just, they are in a process of expanding. And Adam is a sort of a recent hire for the Enable program and is working on outreach. In a conversation with them, we were trying to get them to understand that we were not in a position that we can just print items and give them away, right? Mm-hmm. And so Jeremy offered to send it out on their network. And it was just a different line of thinking for us because as probably with other programs that are doing some of the 3D printing, we've always been focused on how are we getting products made, and how can we get these made and get them in the hands of people that need them, with the caveat of no, we can't just give AT to somebody, right? Because that's not allowable via the federal funding, right? For the AT programs.
So I was actually curious about that because like TechOwl gives away, lots of programs give away their 3D printed stuff.
Yeah, well, they probably should not admit to that unless they're doing it with funding other than AT Act funding. But if you're,
I see.
Okay, so you could have other different funding pools of funding, that could be covering those costs and being able to do that through some other leveraged funding that you have. But when it comes to ATAC dollars, you cannot print something and provide it to the individual. That's the difference.
Okay.
So, so at any rate, you know, we were always focused on us being the provider to other people that needed these devices, right?
Right.
And we never really thought about somebody doing something for us. And and so that's what happened with this Enable, because they said, well, what if we printed a bunch, put this out to our network and just let volunteers print them and send them to you? And so I was like, okay, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And so then I offered, you know, something came up about Missouri, and I said, well, I'd be happy to introduce you to the Missouri program. And so Adam, somehow either you requested from him or he put a request to you, and you guys got connected. So
I think
so
he
I thought
just
that was
emailed
good.
me and we set up a time and talked.
Okay. So so I think that, though, you know, and I gave him the caveat that not all programs do 3D print. You know, there is a program in every state in this, you know, territories, but not everybody's involved in 3D printing, and those that are involved at the various different levels of their capacity of what they can do. So that's kind of just where that's at, and I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. And you can run with it, because
Yeah,
maybe it's something that falls in with what you guys could help coordinate for other programs and stuff, and that connection with Adam. They seem to be growing pretty trying to grow pretty rapidly. When, you know, they've always been focused on their you know, prosthetic hands that they were doing. And now they're just looking at a variety of different things in different areas. And one of the things they said was, you know, gosh, here we have makers and they don't have anything to do, you know, we need more stuff. But I mean, they're all over. So they're on, you know, little stuff like this, and trying to get stuff to Ukraine and other countries, you know, with an international footprint. And I know that they're looking carefully now as they're just starting to explore things. And part of that exploration for them was with, you know, looking at the Makers Making Change model, and they're connecting with them. And I'm not sure what they'll do or what direction they'll go with that, but that's just sort of the status of where things are today.
Right. So yeah, I talked to him. I asked if he had reached out to Makers Making Change, and he said he'd reached out to somebody, but nobody had gotten back to him. So I said, you know, I'll shoot you some names. And then he set up a meeting with somebody. So that's happening, which I think is really good. But I don't think it doesn't seem that there's anything wrong with having kind of two networks of groups, you know, able to make devices for folks. That was my concern at very first, was like, okay, if Makers Making Change is requesting volunteers to make, you know, different kinds of devices and also be creative, you know, where will Enable fall in? You know, I don't want it to be competing. That just seems silly. But it seems like people are going to come in from different sides, and Enable just seems like a different entry point into 3D printing that could really benefit a lot of ATAC programs.
Correct. And I would, you know, when we started this whole process of looking at how we were going to structure things, and we started out being sort of really excited with Makers Making Change, and still really appreciate the what they're doing, and Courtney, you know, heads up a chapter for us. But they also went through kind of a lot of changes as we were finding our way as well. And the thing that stood out to me, and that I would hope you would take on with other AT programs, is a couple of things I did not like was, and I understand why they did it, and it's great for them, but I wanted a system where that right now it's somebody says, gosh, I need something, and they post it. And then you're just hoping that somebody picks it up and takes it on, right? And so our focus, of course, as a state AT program was serving the folks in Illinois. How are we going to be able to do this? And what we wanted a method and a system in place that when somebody requests a device, they get a response. And we match them with something that we feel is an appropriate device, right? No matter how simple. And same thing of, yeah, you can go to Thingiverse and pull down all kinds of files, but has anybody vetted those? And is there does it need to be stronger? Can it be printed with less layers and still serve the same purpose and save on filament, and just all those considerations that we wanted to take in. And we really wanted our focus to be on customized devices. And that's kind of what we're concentrating on. But that said, as Courtney shared the list with you, we've had requests from aging and other things of, wanting these just sort of daily living aids. And how are we going to handle that? So,
well, and I like the idea of having a couple of in-state makers who want to help, in-state makers who want to help, saying like, I'll just make you 6 of these and 6 of these and 6 of these, and you have them in your stash, and wherever the file comes from, so it's vetted from you, or it's from Makers Making Change, or wherever the file, you have confidence, but what they're making. It's something that you just have I don't know, I like the idea of a stash, because that's kind of what the museum is doing for Tech Owl. And then you have the kind of the ability to do more of that customization for an individual. I don't know, is that
we'll be doing that, and it's sort of 2 areas of focus that are on our agenda. Is one, I think we're going to do a much stronger outreach with schools, and we have some connections, but there's requests that come in, especially as it relates to key guards, as you can imagine, in schools. And we don't want to be just printing something because they can get it. It's because it's cheaper, right?
Right.
But we do want to, if it needs to be modified, then that's something we'll do. And what we'd like for the system to end up being is that the request comes in, we'll do the design and the testing and the modification or whatever, make sure it's good. Then they can download the file and get somebody in their own school or district or wherever to print what they need.
Yeah.
So that's what we're hoping works out.
Yeah, that seems like a good model. Yeah, I think it's all very interesting. Shannon, you're kind of joining us late. We're discussing eNable. I don't know if you have worked with them at all. It's 3D, primarily 3D printing organization that has focused in the past on prosthetics, and their new, he's an outreach guy. I think their new guy, Adam, is currently working with Illinois and interested in working with more Tech Act programs. Is that a fair summary, Kathy?
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not exactly sure where that's all going. They're just exploring a lot of different options, but and just so folks understand, 3D Universe, they have the they basically have two sides. They have the business side where they sell printers and scanners and filament and all that kind of stuff. And then they have a nonprofit arm, which is the Enable Project, and that is a total nonprofit. And so they're started and tied together by the same people, but the Enable side is the nonprofit side of what they've been doing. And the Enable Project has, I think they just had their 10-year anniversary of what they were doing. And so they're at the point that they're looking at next steps and what else direction can they go now. So I would say, if you are interested, take a look at their website and send a message and they'll follow up with you. And, it might be different for every program of what somebody ends up doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is kind of nice that it does feel like it is very flexible, or has flexibility to kind of work for each of our own programs.
Yeah. So that's all I'm going to say on that. And I see that Catherine jumped on and a couple other people. So
yeah,
we can jump topics.
Yeah. Is anybody else on here working with Enable, or have you even heard of Enable?
I just pulled them up. I'm wondering if the 3D Universe is more northern entity.
The Enable is worldwide. They're actually stronger in other countries than Adam was saying. Then their network is not as strong in the States. So I think they are across the country. There's some way you can find kind of a map. He sent me a couple different places, so I don't know where I found that.
Yeah, they've had an international focus for quite some time. And that's a whole nother discussion we could have sometime around 3D.
Oh yeah, I see the map.
Where you're drawing the line, right? And our interest, I mean, that was just something that presented itself, but I'm always looking for a wider and wider circle of people that are that can contribute to design ideas, right? So to me, when you get a new challenge, the larger group you have for creative ideas, the better.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like they do more prosthetic hands rather than the whole grand scheme of things.
Right. So the prosthetic hands has been their focus, but they are at a point right now where they're expanding out to other types of assistive technology and what they might do with that network.
Yeah, and Adam was saying he wants an entry-level way to, for people who don't want to start into prosthetics, but want to do something that the kind of lower tech AT would actually be a way for folks to just kind of like gain their confidence into 3D printing, which I think sounded great.
I think the key guards is a way to go because we're at UT at the AT program, and we're starting to get a lot of requests for key guards, and I don't have time to make everybody a key guard. So what I'm doing is I'm training, like Austin Independent School District. I worked with their team to train them how to use the Ken's volt switches software to kind of design it, and that way I'm building capacity that way. Because if they design it, I can print it on our 3D printer, but for me to sit there and design everybody's individual, that takes some time, and it adds up.
So why aren't they printing their own? They don't have a 3D printer in their district?
They do, and they're working on it. They're working, the problem I'm finding with districts, because I've been working with a lot of districts, is they're not connecting with their special ed. So you've got maker spaces and you've got you've got the groups, the tech programs that are doing the 3D printing, you've got the maker spaces, but they're not connecting with special ed. And so one of my big things that I've been working on is let's connect. So Austin Independent School District, I've got probably half a dozen school districts in the Houston area where I actually went with one of my 3D printer friends to a general education fair on technology. And we showed how, and we had a lot of instructors come and talk about it in regards to building capacity with their students, but it's still just emerging. Like many professors never even considered making things for special education. So we hear a lot about it because that's all we hear about it, because we're special education. And so we get creme de la creme. But if you actually go out into the grand scheme of all the schools, that's not being done like we need it to be done. So it's really been trying to build connections between tech programs and special ed departments. In our region, it's really getting our special ed teams, our AT teams, to reach out. But there's just so many politics in so many of the schools that Austin Independent School District is really making some good progress. Because what we want to do in Austin, and they're a larger district and they've got a lot of support from their management. What we want to do is we're setting up an ordering program where all their special ed teachers can go in and order the parts, like the 3D printers or the bliss symbols or whatever it is that they need, or some of the academic tools. And then your tech programs are actually making it, and then your special ed budget then can pay for the filament. So you've got all of these little pieces working together. So Austin Independent School District is in the process of purchasing their own 3D printer. But my problem with that is when I was working in the service center and we supported 39 different school districts in the Houston area, I was having to go, like, everybody jumped on the bandwagon and bought 3D printers, but they didn't realize the time. It's researching your printer. So we tried to create some guides for them in regards to really having a plan on who's going to train on it, who's going to actually be printing, so that you don't get these printers. And I had a friend who went to 5 different school districts and set the printers up because they didn't realize that some of the ones they purchased had to be put together. They didn't realize that some of the 3D printers had sole source filament, or so it's, we're learning and we're working hopefully smarter. Austin Independent School District, I think, is going to probably be a leader for our state, because they're really setting up some good procedures, but it's still a process.
And it's nice to have a school district that can take the lead on that. So if another school district
Correct.
in a year wants to get into this, they can look at that model and move forward and not hit so many of the roadblocks that are bound to happen when things change. And
Right.
printing is a change. Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got certain school districts where somebody was really energetic and they got a 3D printer. I had one school district that came to me because they didn't know what the 3D printer was and they gave it away.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But see, and this is the kind of stuff we're seeing, because one person, oh, I'm great. No, I'm not great, but I don't mean it like that. But I'm going to go and get this grant. I got them to buy this great 3D printer. Oh, guess what? I got transferred. I got another better job offer at this other district. So now that's sitting in a box, or nobody else was trained on it. And so it's just like our augmentative communication system. If you're not trained to use it, it just sits on a shelf and it's not doing anybody any good.
Yeah, and so
And
Shannon, if that's also the challenge that I'm looking at is, you got printers they're just all over the place, right? It could be part of the STEM program. It could be, part of somebody wrote a transition grant or a different grant and they got it funded, or a particular school got some money and it's in the third grade classroom, or some other school, it's in the junior high school. And so it's just all over the place.
And it's really, I'm getting your AT groups in schools to really set up and plan where are the printers, how are we going to connect, how are we going to get the filament, who are we going to train to do it. And it's really looking at all of those working parts before you jump in, because we've got so many people who have jumped on the bandwagon of 3D printing, and now we're just wasting time and materials.
Right, and they're going to fall off the bandwagon because
Right.
they've hit, their third roadblock, which is where do I get, how do I get my filament? I've had something go wrong. I don't know who to talk to, just whatever it is. But, there's lots of roadblocks when everybody has a different printer and a different,
And so one of the things in my planning is really getting special ed departments. And there's a district, Aldine here in the Houston area, and they're doing a really good job. I've worked with several of their general ed, because they're actually using the special ed to get extra grant funding, to get more printers for their classrooms so that they can work with special ed. So it's just, but I think like I said, everybody jumped on the bandwagon. Now you're kind of starting to see what some of the problems are. And I think it's really important that we have some open communication about that so that we're all growing together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it sounds like you're leading the way and you will show us all the best roadmap.
I think Austin is going to be one of my good leaders, and I'm hoping we've got another group up in Dallas that they're trying to build it into their transition program so that they're training, because in Texas, a lot of our public libraries are now using 3D printers. So we're trying to get some of our students in our transition programs trained, because that would be a possible job for some of our transition students. So those are, but like I said, everything's still in the beginning stages. So I think we all need to, all of our ideas need to kind of flow together.
No, and then, we just got our first 3D printer and actually, because I don't have an SD card reader on my computer, I just used one of the files that was on it. So I made my first device, and then it is a bottle opener. So I took it home and tested it out, and it does indeed work.
What kind of printer did you get, Scout?
I got a Prusa.
Okay.
And I actually bought two, because I bought one for one of my demo sites so that because he's familiar with 3D printing, and so I bought one for him. So he's going to be my first go-to when I struggle. And I printed this Friday, and at the end of the print, my printer stopped. I mean, I don't have to talk about all the details of it, but
no, but that's important.
Yeah, well, it is. I now need help. I don't know how to fix it. I went through the 2 steps and it didn't resolve. So now the filament isn't coming out, and so I'm like, okay, this is one of the tricky spots that I'll reach out to the people I know and get help.
Even with the Ultimaker, I have the Ultimaker, which I love. And I got it because it has 2 dual extruders, so you can do 2 different colors. So like on the bliss symbols, I can just start it and it will actually infill the words and change the color on the symbol on the top. And so I don't have to keep going back and doing it. But for me to learn how to use both extruders, it took a call to the support team, because I'm not an engineer and I didn't realize what I had to do it. Now that I know, and they worked with me, it's amazing. It's saving me almost probably an hour per symbol because I
Wow.
would have to pause it. I would have to go and switch it out, and you lose filament every time you switch out the filament. And now it's just using the dual extruders, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I thought I bought one with dual extruders, but I just put it together last week and thank you, Lori. I do need the support department. We didn't actually purchase them because we went directly through Prusa, and I had to have somebody else purchase them because I work for DESE. I work for the school system, and it was just too much.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually purchase them, but I don't know. I have so much to figure out still. I just feel
I have
like,
a 3D printing kind of I put a Padlet together. I don't know if I shared this with you before. But what we're doing is it's meant to be a tool to help people work smarter, because I don't know everything, but as I find things, I put them on this 3D Padlet.
nice.
And so you're welcome to, let me put it in the link in. You're welcome to look at it. I've kind of got everything organized by kind of like what terms you're using, the handouts from my presentations, but I would love to add to it. Let me add it. Let's see if y'all can get this.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because mine is more just helping you find the resources quicker. And I've got it organized by key guards, baby care, computer dressing, where if you find things to add to it, but we're trying to kind of organize it just to make it a little bit. Now, all of the print labs are Texas because we are in Texas, but you could definitely even save this and share it.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Yeah,
But we did, when we bought our 3D printer the second time, because I switched organizations, I made sure that we actually got a contract for training everybody in our department on it. And that's something I think people aren't looking at, but I want to make sure that I'm not the only one who can use this, which I was in the previous place I worked. And then they actually, after I left, it sat for a good year before the new person had time to actually look at it. And that's what we need to really be combating against, because if we've got this great tool, it shouldn't be sitting on a shelf.
right. Yeah, and I really want to avoid that. I see, okay, I hit my second hurdle. My first hurdle was very low, and I was able to jump over that. I mean, besides just I bought an enclosure and the time that it took to put it all together, which that's kind of fun for me. But these hurdles, I'm like, okay, I don't want them to be a stopping point.
Right.
And I want to be, like, think about this as not just me, because other people are going to have this same, kind of ride when they get a 3D printer. And so just kind of the places to find the support, I think, are very helpful, but also, like Lori is saying, I can go to Prusa and get support, but not every printer has that level of support. So where else do you go?
But Scout, that's one of the things I'm trying to get people. So I've got a coworker, he's younger and he's got more time than me, and he's creating a planning document. And so and he's real creative like that. So we're going to actually put a planning document on our website. So it'll be free. And it's going to ask people to fill in like all of those pieces of who's going to be using it, how are we going to train them. So it's going to be a planning guide for organizations when they're purchasing them, because I want people to start thinking long-term on building sustainability versus getting caught up on the bandwagon of the excitement of 3D printing, because it has so much potential, but I'm just seeing too many abandoned printers right now.
Right. I think that's really smart, is that a planning document, like I took a long time deciding what to purchase. I think partly because, I would come on this group and then go on the 3D printing group that AT3 has. And, it just, everybody, like I know, Lori, don't you have a Dremel or, and you really like it, and that's great. So I'm like, oh, do I go that way? Do I go this way? But looking at what you individually need or what your organization needs. And I think that planning document, Shannon, sounds like a really smart tool.
Yeah, and he should have that. He's pretty dynamic. We just, he should
Who's
have
that?
that pretty soon.
Who is it that you're working with?
It's Cole.
Yeah.
He's newer, and he's just, I do so much more of the AAC training in the state of Texas. And so all of this new 3D printing is taking me away from what I was originally hired. So we're kind of trying to turn it over to Cole so that I can do what I need to be doing.
Yeah, well, Cole is very cool. I've enjoyed meeting and working with him a little bit. So.
Yeah, he takes the ball and runs with it, and he's a forward thinker, and he's going to be a force to reckon with as he starts really growing. And I think, yeah,
and I feel like it's one of the things that we're kind of lacking here. We just hired our first, we have an administrative assistant who is under 30, and we just hired somebody else, but that is under 30. But, and I think we have one person in their 40s, and then the rest of us are 50 and over, which, right. I mean, it's not like we can't learn or anything, but I do think there's a younger generation to kind of pick this up and run with it out there. They just don't happen to be in-house here. And I don't know if other tech acts are like that, but, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 9 of us that are in our 50s, or over.
yeah, and we're the same in our program. I think we've just hired 2, and we're only half funding one of them. We're sharing one person, but then Cole was our new hire, and like I said, I've worked with him on how to use the CAD programs. We've uploaded everything, and we give him assignments, and he's gonna do a really good job. I think he's doing a really good job, and I think he's going to be a force to reckon with as he starts really getting there. But as soon as we do have that planning document, because we're including things like I said, where's it going to be stored? Because what your filaments are going to be, that you're going to be used, because some of them have more of an odor. So you've got to be aware of, those hoods or something, or where you're going to put it so that you get ventilation. You've got to, you don't have it with the PLA, but for some of the higher. And then you want to be looking at the noise. So even your quietest printers have a slight sound. So is it going to be disrupting classrooms or meetings or wherever? So we're getting right into the nitty gritty of really having a good plan when you're purchasing these, and then training who's going to be trained on it. What's the long-term plan for sustainability, buying filament? Those are all things that people need to really think about, not just,
Right. And what Kathy was saying, I think before you jumped on, was, at the AT Acts, we're not supposed to use our funds to give things away. And so, like you were saying, you have special ed funding, and so that can work. But for those of us that don't have that, how do you match up the rules? And I think it is something you don't want to get caught up in a fun project and have it, you're crossing some lines you didn't even know you were crossing, maybe,
Right.
or didn't realize.
So that's why Cole's developed, and that was his first assignment. We put a website together, and so we're charging the cost of filament and shipping.
Okay,
So that they're replacing. So we have the 3D printer, which we purchased. And what we're doing then is I first had some donated filament, so then I can give anything I've used the donated filament away. But then for sustainability, we're going to charge per ounce on the filament so that whatever it is that we're making for you, you're paying for the filament.
yeah, even if it's just $2.
Correct.
Yeah. And the shipping though.
Yeah, and shipping. So they can, like, if you're local in Austin, like Austin Independent School District's local, so they'll come and pick it up so that they can save the shipping. But if we have to ship it to someone, like we've had to ship a key guard to San Antonio, then they pay shipping.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And it's still, I mean, kind of pennies on the dollar to
Correct.
Buying something specialized. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a good model. And I think, like I said, I just think these things are important too, so that we're all staying within our lines for however we decide to move forward. I am curious, Marcus, I'm terrible with names. If you're still with us, are you with a Tech Act and I've just forgotten, or are you joining us from somewhere else? And if you don't have a mic, if you want to throw something in the chat.
Marcus, where is it that you're working right now?
Or not. Oh, no, okay. Well, anyway, and Kathy, what kind of printers do you guys have?
I was just trying to do a link here for everybody.
Got it.
We have some Ultimaker S3s and some Ultimaker S5s, and we're very excited that we have a new Modix Big 81X, and which allows us to print large items. And we were able to just, the one is just now up and running, and we have we're getting a lot of requests because we have started this IATP has started this kitchen program as well.
Nice.
And so we did a reacher for a chair user to reach the knobs on the back of her stove without getting out of her chair, out of filament that can withstand up to 500 degrees. So so that was fun because it's like 28 inches long, right? And so that's one of the things that came up soon as we had the Ultimaker, and people are like all excited, except you're so restricted by your build plate size, right?
Yeah.
I just threw a link on there. I didn't know, as Shannon was talking, this group is actually in, I want to say they're in St. Louis, Scout.
Okay.
And they recycle filament.
Nice.
And so you might want to explore that. There's a couple different options. We've set up an account with them. We don't have enough filament to send them yet. But they do the filament, and I know that and now I'm not going to know which side of it is with 3D Universe, but they recycle spools. So although there's 1,001 ideas you can come up with of what to do with empty spools, right? Whether,
No, I like the fact that I've got like 4 empty spools, and I don't need my grandkids like filling my house with more junk. I'd rather send them to somewhere who they can use them again.
You can wrap your Christmas lights around them. You can do extension cords. You can do, but anyway, 3D Universe, they do also have a recycling program, not for filament, but just for the spools. So
Good to know. Thank you.
Look
Yeah.
on there for that link.
Yeah, those are things. And size of the plate, the build plate is another thing that's in that planning guide, because if you're doing like I have the S3, that was our first one we bought, and then we realized it wasn't big enough, so we got our second one was the S5, because we needed that bigger build plate for the key guards.
Yeah.
And so if they're building key guards, and then someone's like, well, can't you just like print 2 halves? And I'm like, well, but then that's taking away from the integrity of the key guard, but it's also adding another step and taking more time.
Mhm.
And for me, my time is more valuable. So that build plate is a huge consideration when you're first starting to purchase it. How
Yeah.
big
Oh, what's that?
how big are your Scout on your build plates on your Prusa?
I got it's so new. And I did, because I didn't buy it, there's that step of like, I looked at it, I sent it, but I think it's the M3. I don't know. I was surprised at how small the build plate was.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to go into, I was trying not to go into this like kind of with my eyes only half open, but then I think about what do I want to build? I really I just want to do ADLs at first. And so those will all be fine. I'll see how this goes, but I can see like if it goes well, I would want a bigger build plate because I think key guards could just take off.
Right. Kathy, where do you work out of?
Well, I'm post-retirement, Shannon, and I'm in Montana, but I'm working on projects in with Illinois.
I love Montana in the summer.
Yes, summer's really nice if you have that day off. No.
So yeah, it's a lot of things. How close are you on your document, do you think, Shannon, or how close is Cole?
He's going pretty good, and maybe we'll even bring it. Scout, you might be one of the people we have like to kind of review it and help out. We'll probably actually open it up at the AT Act meeting and just get some good feedback so that it can be a shared document.
That would be great. I would really like that. David, my boss, and I were just talking about like where are we going to permanently keep our printer, and he wanted it in a kind of in our kitchen, and I was like, no, I really want it in the bigger room, just in case anybody is nervous about anything it's giving off. It's in a big space. It's not kind of enclosed in a small room. I don't plan on, at least not right away, of doing anything but PLA, and I got an enclosure, so it dampens the sound. It's a large room. The large room happens to be the office for 2 of our staff people. So I want to make sure everybody is comfortable, not nervous,
Yeah, we have a lab, and we ended up Cole initially was like, well, I'll put it in my office. But then once it's running, and that humming sound while he was on like Zoom meetings ended up being a little more than he could take. So now it's in the lab. And
yes, we also have a lab. It is an old chemistry lab, and but 2 of our staff actually are like their offices are the lab. So
yeah, so that's a consideration. And we actually bought carts for both of ours. So I got a really nice cart with big wheels to make it real sturdy, and we'll move it around if we need to do something, because we like to keep it running.
That's what David talked about this morning, is getting a cart. Yeah, one of the things you ought to also look at is you can get some pretty nice heavy duty toolboxes. Floor mount toolboxes that are on wheels that actually end up being cheaper than the carts, just because the carts are specialized.
I got
Yeah,
a kitchen,
they
I got,
identify them that way as 3D printer cart, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I got a kitchen cart at the Container Store with, and I got the larger wheels. It's like a,
Yeah,
and was able to cut it to the height I wanted. And it's got the bigger wheels. So when I take it to do demos, like I did a training at the Speech and Hearing Association, I was able to cart that thing right down Austin Bike Lane and get it right in there to the convention center. So I looked like I was homeless with all my,
yeah, but yeah, that's the other alternative. Look at just sort of kitchen carts and toolboxes, because they
Movable-
as you look,
portable.
especially with schools, if you look at 3D printing carts, they're outrageously overpriced.
Okay, yeah, but I do see the advantage of being able to store a lot of supplies underneath your cart. I think the toolbox would be cool, but if you're ever taking it anyplace, that kitchen cart would probably be easier and you can just put like a tote on a shelf. Is that what you?
It's got a shelf on the bottom. So I can put the toolbox on the shelf on the bottom, but when I move it into my car, the 3D printer's light enough, I can put it in the back of the van. I can put the carts light enough and then the toolbox. So it travels really well with those broken parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what the future will look like. Like, will we ever take it out of the office? I don't know, but I think it's smart to think about these options before purchase, you know.
Right. And then the one that we have, the S5 with the bigger, that one is on an actual 3D cart, and that thing is a monster. So you can't change levels. You couldn't go downstairs. It would have to have a ramp because it's just going to be too heavy for us to break apart. So that portability is something, depending on where you're going to be, you might want to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, it would be cool to be able to take this to our annual conference, and we don't have it where we here, so and just have the 3D printer set up and running, or to go to any place else. Yeah.
Scout, where it really comes in handy is when we're doing like little demonstration, like we have little like smaller conferences that we're demonstrating at, and we have a little table. It brings people over, and so we just put in little zipper pulls and we make something really fast so people can see it going up and down. And it really gets people coming over and asking questions about our other AT products. Yeah,
I think that's great. I think that's really smart. It almost makes me wish, for a second printer without an enclosure that would be more portable.
Well, Kathy's S3 is really portable because that's the one I travel around with.
Yeah, those Ultimakers are really expensive, aren't they?
When you start looking at my hourly rate plus everything else I'm doing, I think they run between 3 and 5, but in the grand scheme of things, it'll pay for itself when you start considering it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
the print quality is really
isn't
nice.
as high. What's that?
Yeah, and
Kathy?
the print quality is if you've got a good file, the print quality is really good on the Ultimaker. And it's pretty, I call it like using a microwave, because it walks you through everything. And even if I want to go to videos, I can watch the videos right there on the screen. So it's pretty user friendly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is why
I did get some.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I said I did get some quotes from Ultimaker, but because I wanted to get 2, I couldn't stomach it.
But if you have 2 that aren't working versus 1 that you can just keep going 24/7.
Well, and I thought the Prusa was kind of that a compromise that felt good for me. I still spent more than I'm like, you can get a 3D printer for a couple $100, but I wasn't going to go that route. So I tried to get one that has good support, that was, I had heard from people who use it. It's a great machine without going kind of overboard. Yeah. I mean, not that anybody who has Ultimaker is going overboard. It sounds like it's really smart for your program. I just don't know where our program is going yet.
Right,
You know?
right. And the Prusa is a good, I've got lots of friends using the Prusa also. It's,
I would say if you do look at Ultimaker, and we've worked with different companies, but I can't say enough about the customer service from
I would
3D
agree.
Universe.
Okay.
3D Universe is just, they've had outstanding customer service and they've been great to work with, and they will provide, a nonprofit or, education discount.
Yeah. I think our
Well-
representatives in Texas that support it also, and they offer those training packages, which you don't get, where they'll come and train our whole staff. And that's what I wanted.
That's really does sound amazing. And again, right now, I think I have one other staff member that's interested, and and she's so swamped that I think in the future I could see if I get this going, as our staff retire, it could be really smart to go with the Ultimaker. But I got to get it going.
Well, and there's a lot of options out there, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Kathy,
Yeah.
Consider.
what do you primarily print then with your Ultimakers?
So we've had some daily living, simple kind of devices. Went to all our, I'm not a kit person, so I hate saying this, but basically as a kit, went to all our area agencies on aging across the state, and they're all using those as examples of in their trainings and outreach with seniors.
I love that. I'm not much of a kit guy either, but I love that, getting into the senior centers.
And then we've had, we've done a couple customized products. We've done a G-tube holder that's on a base that the actual it's a telescoping tabletop base.
Yes.
And it the holder can be changed for different devices. But that was a custom we did, and then we've done one with we just did a gyroscoping cup holder.
Nice. How did that work out?
The Permobile, the arm of the Permobile chair.
Cool.
It was a real tight fit for a gentleman that, just had really tight specs for him to be able to get in his van and drive and not bust that off, and then also be able, not to worry about anything spilling regardless of what level he was at. So, and we've done I think that stove knob turner we just did, and then we've also done a mirror that will rotate, that's on the back of a wall for somebody that's a chair user, over their stove to see what's going on.
Oh, nice.
That's what I want is my that's what I want is my retirement job.
I know, I was like, I'm like, where was this? I used to do a lot of remodeling and stuff as well, right? And I was like, why couldn't I have, and the stuff that Illinois is doing now with the 3D printing capacity they're building and the home mods, it's like, where was this 30 years ago? I would have loved to have done it then, right? And we were just all, at that point, with other colleagues, we were all dreaming big about how we should be doing this, and here it is, they're finally doing it. So it's exciting, which is why I'm doing stuff with them.
Right,
Plus,
why you're still involved.
they're a great program to work with. So I'm kind of behind the scenes and just helping with program development and getting things organized and in place, but it's
Well,
been
that's the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
Anyway,
and Courtney's taking it and running.
Yeah, Courtney is our new, so I had to laugh when you're talking about ages, because there is a lot of new OTs and CODAs that they have on staff, and just new young people, that it's exciting, and it's just like it makes you want to be able to provide some mentoring for them, right? So
I would agree. I would agree. All right, well,
Yeah.
let me, I got another meeting, but thank you, Scout, for hosting, and
Yeah, thanks for coming. I think my next appointment is actually here. So thank you, everybody. Marcus, so glad to have you join us. No,
and as soon as we have that planning document, we will let y'all look at it for review so that we can really clean it up and make it worthwhile.
yeah, I'd be happy to look at that, Shannon.
Kathy, can you put your email before we leave real quick?
Okay.
And then thanks for holding off.
All right.
Got it.
All right.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
That was great. Bye, everybody.